1, 2, 2, 2.
The House Chairperson.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. I'll ask the secretary to read the order.
Debate on vote 9, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Appropriation Bill.
Thank you. Before I recognize the minister, let me firstly apologize, honorable members, for us to start a bit late. I lost track of time. I had a briefing session and I've been running through the parking lot, so I need to cool down a bit. Yeah, I can feel my heart beat at this present moment. But my apologies, my sincere apologies, honorable members. I will now recognize the Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, Honorable Majosi, Honorable Deputy Minister in Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Mr. Seiso Mahai, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Ms. Teliswa Mkweba, Honorable Members of the Portfolio Committee of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Honorable Members of Parliament, the Director General of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Robert Nkuna and his team, distinguished guests, members of the media, fellow South Africans, and good morning. I'm honored to present the 2025-2026 financial year budget vote of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation before this esteemed parliament. This moment comes just 10 days before we celebrate the birthday of the founding father and first democratically elected president of South Africa, President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Madiba dedicated his entire life to peace, equality, justice, and the empowerment of the marginalized. Let us honor Tata Madiba's legacy by deepening our democracy and strengthening the capacity of the state to deliver on key priorities. We welcome the allocated budget of 450 million and urge this Parliament to endorse it in support of our mandate, which comprises of the coordination and integration of planning, monitoring, and also the implementation, of course, of the NDP, as well as the MTDP of 2024 to 2029. And we will do this by ensuring that evaluation of key government programs to drive the improved performance and accountability across the state becomes a success. Over the past year, the department has engaged with the Portfolio Committee on several pressing issues, including the concerns about the ability of this department to steer the whole state machinery towards the development outcomes. Together with the committee, we affirmed the importance of shifting focus from inputs to outcomes in impact, a principle that underpins the MTDP. Honorable House Chair, I'm pleased to report to this august House that Cabinet approved the MTDP of 2024 to 2029 in February 2025, and its implementation is already underway. In this regard, the draft MTDP was presented to the Portfolio Committee while it was still being finalized by the executive. This plan marks a critical phase in the journey towards achieving our NDP, which is Vision 2030, as it is the final medium-term planning cycle before the 2030 targets of the NDP as well as our SDGs. This MTDP strategic priorities that we all know, the three ones that have been adopted by Cabinet, states clearly that the priorities are supported by a broad cross-section of society, both during their formulation and now in the implementation phase. For example, NEDLAC convened a social partner as well as organized labor, business, community, and government to reflect on the 30-year review and provide recommendations to planning in the 7th administration. Recent engagement with leaders of JSE, Standard Bank, and Bureau of Economic Research became very useful as they were examples that build on the process championed by the President of the Republic to galvanize a united front in pursuing the country's development priorities. Successful implementation of the MTDP must be demonstrated through the achievement of its set targets and improving living conditions of our citizens. To support key success of this MTDP, DPME is facilitating a process to identifying the key success factors and the risk management framework to ensure that we do not miss these targets. In the assessment of the national and provincial 5-year strategic plans, as well as APPs, we have observed greater alignment with the MTDP as well as the NDP. As part of this persisting in monitoring government's sustained agenda against the set clear interventions and targets of the MTDP. This will be achieved through the production of biannual reports to the executive on our progress, and any setbacks encountered will also be reported upon. This report will not only examine the outputs of the MTDP, but it will also emphasize the tracking of the outcomes of actions, interventions, as well as all other various sectors. To ensure adequate resource allocation, the DPME will develop the budget prioritization framework on an annual basis to facilitate the alignment of planning priorities and the national budget processes. The synergies between planning and budgeting is very crucial, honorable members. We are also pleased to note the ongoing work by the National Treasury to review the budget processes. DPME is also actively contributing to these processes and also through its participation in the technical committee of the national budget. Development finance institutions continue to demonstrate that they are very important. For example, an independent evaluation of a renewable energy project financed by the BRICS New Development Bank in South Africa, for instance, revealed that the initial partnership that the NDB had with Development Bank of South Africa and also with IDC enabled them to expand their network to local private partners that they've been able to work with. Let me join millions of South Africans in commemorating the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter adopted in Kliptown in 1955. But we also welcome the President's call to an all-inclusive national dialogue that will enable conversation among citizens on critical challenges that our South Africa is actually facing. In June 2025, the NPC, in partnership with DPME, and the Northern Cape Provincial Government, as well as Sol Plaatje University, hosted a national planning summit to facilitate a conversation on long-term planning as well as development of our country. We have been able to speak about a number of issues that have been able to give us a foundation to be able to deal with the NDP moving forward. Over the past few years, attempts have been made to strengthen the mandate of the DPME through the planning bill. We are now shifting focus and considering white paper process, which will enable us to clarify the cohort questions that have been raised by financial or various stakeholders within and outside government. We have also been able to come up with the SOE bill that have been presented to the portfolio committee. In this regard, the department tabled this National Enterprise Bill before the House to promote the reform of South Africa's SOE towards a centralized shareholder model aligned with governance framework, built on clear mandate to centralize oversight and performance-based management. We have also been able to put systems in place, and in order to do that, we have been able to put in place what we call National Evaluation Policy Framework to incorporate lessons learned and also modern evaluation methodologies, introducing a new National Evaluation Plan of 2025 to 2030. This will guide the National Evaluation Agenda and revising the data system to modernize data systems as well as improve operability. We have been able to develop things like the development indicators as well as evaluation of priority of human settlement and housing development areas, as well as rapid evaluation of the 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all aware, of course, that this year is a very important year as our country is presiding over the G20 under the overarching theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. In this regard, the DPME is responsible for chairing and as well as coordinating the development of the working group under the South African presidency of the G20. In this regard, we have identified 3 priorities, namely the mobilizing of finance for development through curbing illicit financial flows, social protection flows, where we are highlighting the need to fast-track progressive implementation of national defined universal social protection flows, and also introducing the debate and discussion on the importance of the global public good to address global challenges. So far, we have been able to convene 3 meetings of the DWG at the technical level to prepare for the ministerial meeting to be held on the 24th to 25th of July 2025 at the Kruger National Park. We appreciate the support and guidance of this House. We also thus far been able to come up with ways to support the Department of DERCO in reviewing by an annual commission to assess the extent of which implementation and results is achieved. We will also provide support in the review of the Southern African Development Community, which is SADC, Indicative Strategic Development Plan, which is pivotal to regional integration and rejuvenation of the region itself. Our department has also supported the work of His Excellency, the President of this country, in his capacity as the AU championship on the Presidential Infrastructure Championing Initiative. By revitalizing this initiative that involved 12 African countries, we focus on promoting infrastructure projects among these countries in the continent. Equally so, we have just returned from Seville, Spain, where we participated in the 4th International Conference of Financing for Development. This important conference sought alternative means to the international community to promote and support the financing of development programs around the world. All of the above-mentioned activities demonstrate that the department remains committed to its mandate and role to promote coherence and as well as institutionalization of planning development of the integration of monitoring system as well as ensuring that the critical issues that our government needs in terms of programs is actually very successful. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to express appreciation to the chairperson of our portfolio committee, and also to be able to say that we still request that you continue to guide us the way that you have been able to, because that shows that we can be able to build a better South Africa. Equally so, let me also express appreciation to the Deputy Minister, Mahwai, for his commitment and support. Lastly, let me take this opportunity and also thank Dr. Robert Nkuna, who is the DG of our department, and as well as the whole staff members of our department in the commitment that they've showed in the work of the department. As I conclude, I invite the House to accept and adopt the budget vote of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now recognize the Honorable Mkweba.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable Minister Maruping Ramakhupa, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Seiso Muhai, the DG, Dr. Nkuna, and the team, honorable members and fellow South Africans. It is my honor to address this House today to debate Budget Vote 9, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, a department that lies at the heart of the government's commitment to building a capable, ethical and developmental state, as envisaged in the National Development Plan, Vision 2030. We meet at a time when the nation is undergoing a critical transition under the 7th administration. The Cabinet has adopted the Medium-Term Development Plan 2024 to 2029, a blueprint that translates the NDP's long-term goals into actionable medium-term priorities. It is within this context that the DPME is expected to play a catalytic role in driving integrated planning, ensuring policy coherence, monitoring delivery, and evaluating outcomes across all spheres of government. Honorable members, the department's budget allocation for 2025-2026 financial year stands at 509.1 million. While this allocation reflects a modest growth from the previous year, we must ask ourselves, is it adequate to equip the department to deliver its entire mandate? The evidence suggests otherwise. Program 2, which includes the National Planning Commission and the National Planning Coordination Functions, continues to face resource constraints. This underfunding threatens to undermine the Commission's ability to offer long-term strategic foresight, mobilize multi-stakeholder engagement, and conduct meaningful research to inform national policy development and monitoring. If we are to succeed in advancing inclusive economic growth, social transformation, and spatial equity, this program must be adequately capacitated with sufficient technical capacity. Honorable members, our oversight has identified several areas that require focused interventions. The lack of a dedicated legislative framework defining the DPME's statutory powers, functions, and institutional authority remains a significant gap. Although the department operates by sections of the Constitution and the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act, the absence of a specific legal framework limits its ability to enforce performance accountability and coordinate planning effectively across government. This shortcoming must be addressed with agency. The absence of a formalized oversight and consequence management model hampers the department's ability to hold underperforming departments and entities to account. Without clear protocols for escalation, performance tracking, and remedial action, we risk perpetuating a culture of non-compliance and administrative impunity. Honorable members, the effective government demands that we institutionalize accountability mechanisms with measurable performance outcomes. While the department is tasked with assessing action plans submitted by departments, there is currently no standardized metrics of methodology to evaluate the visibility, the realism, or alignment of these plans with national priorities. This impairs our ability to ensure that the strategic planning is not only compliant on paper, but it is also implementable in practice. We urge the department to enhance its internal planning and evaluation mechanisms and establish benchmarks for success. Honorable members, the challenges within the state-owned entities remain of particular concern. Despite the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation monitoring role, there are tangible improvements in the performance of SOEs. The committee has emphasized the importance of targeted interventions, including tailored improvement plans, rigorous performance tracking, and enhanced interdepartmental coordination to support effective turnaround strategies. And moreover, honorable members, as part of the President's, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation must play a greater role in fostering intergovernmental alignment and coherence. In planning, annual performance plans and departmental strategic plans must be developed in tandem with the MDTP to ensure vertical and horizontal policy alignment. The department must institutionalize structured engagements between national, provincial, and local governments before finalizing strategic annual plans. To this end, the committee has made the following critical recommendations: that the department consider the development of a dedicated legislative framework to consolidate and clarify its mandate and institutional authority; that a comprehensive oversight and consequence management model be adopted with clearly defined protocols for monitoring performance, responding to non-compliance and escalating remedial actions. A standardized visibility assessment framework should be developed to evaluate departmental operation plans, supported a performance dashboard that enables real-time tracking of progress; that additional financial and human resource be allocated to Program 2, particularly for the National Planning Commission to enable long-term strategic research, national consultation, and stakeholder mobilization as we draw to the end of the 2020 NDP. The DPME, working with the National Treasury, report to Parliament on the alignment between the MTDP and the approved annual performance plans of all national, provincial departments and entities. That the National Planning Commission, under the stewardship of the DPME, initiated the development of a new long-term plan for South Africa, building on the legacy of Vision 2030, while responding to emerging socio-economic realities. Honorable members, the budget vote is not simply about numbers. It is about strengthening the institutional engine room of government that is tasked with translating political intent into measurable, accountable, and transformative action. A weak center of government will yield fragmented planning, uncoordinated implementation, and limited impact on the ground. That is a risk we cannot afford to take. Let us therefore adopt the budget vote with a shared understanding that a well-resourced and empowered DPME is essential to rebuilding a trust in the state, improving service delivery, and advancing the developmental aspirations of our constitution. Honorable members, I here table this budget vote 9 for adoption, and in honor of Tata Mandela, I urge all honorable members to support this budget vote. I thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Manyi.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, let me just salute General Mkwana's son of the soil. He's doing a great job for the country. Minister, I'm about to give you a bitter pill. In your own interest, please take it. The Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, the so-called engine room of government performance, is broken. Not because South Africa lacks ideas, not because we lack vision, no. It's broken because the department has been reduced to a bureaucratic bystander in the face of state collapse. We are told the DPME exists to assist the president to monitor, to evaluate, and to coordinate planning. At least that's what President Zuma thought he was doing when he was laying this firm foundation. And yet, more than a decade later, the DPME has no dedicated legislation defining its legal mandate, its scope, and its authority. It continues to operate on a marker plan, presidential proclamations, and vague policy directives, tools that cannot compel performance, cannot enforce accountability, and cannot impose consequences. This is no accident. This is a deliberate political design to keep the department toothless and docile. A toothless bulldog, Ngena Ailumi. Honorable members, the DPME cannot keep hiding behind Chapter 3 of the Constitution and the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act. These instruments encourage cooperation, yes, but they do not confer enforcement powers. They are not substitute for legislation that says this is what the DPME must do and this is what the departments must comply with. So what do we get in return? We get quarterly reports packed with buzzwords and frameworks, but empty of consequences. We get departmental action plans that are neither realistic nor aligned with national priorities. And the DPME rubber stamps them because it has no mandate to reject them. We get collapsing state-owned entities and departments that fail year after year while the DPME observes, records, and shrugs. Honorable Chair, the DPME lacks an oversight model. It lacks consequence management system. It lacks performance metrics. And it lacks even the most basic economic indicators to assess the national progress. Now let's look at the hard facts. I'm going to go through 4 empirical evidence to make this point. 1 on unemployment. The NDP target was 6% by 2030. As we speak here today, we're sitting at 32.9% on the narrow definition and a staggering 42% on the expanded definition in terms of unemployment. This is not a missed target. This is a national emergency. It's a disaster. Inequality. The NDP envisioned a more equal society. Today, South Africa still holds the highest Gini coefficient in the world, with inequality worsening post-COVID-19, who are worse than during apartheid days. This is not transformation. This is entrenchment of economic apartheid. GDP growth. The NDP projected 5.4 annual growth. Where are we now? In the last decade, we haven't even reached an average of 1%. This is not resilience, this is economic stagnation. Lastly, learning with comprehension. The NDP committed that every child in grade 4 would read for meaning by 2030. Where are we today? 81% of children cannot do so. This is not basic education, this is betrayal of the next generation. Honorable members, if the DPME cannot track these outcomes and enforce actions, what exactly is its purpose of existence? And now we're told that the medium-term development plan 24-29 will fix things. No, it will not. You cannot use new templates to disguise the same dysfunction. If the DPME could not steer the ship for the past 12 years, what makes anyone think that it will perform miracles in the next 5? Now let's talk about money. Where is this money going? The money is sitting there with the officials and everybody in the department. 72% of the department's budget is spent on employee compensation, not on planning, not on research, not on impact evaluation, just paying those guys sitting at the back there. This is not planning department. It's a jobs program for comrades, repurposed to absorb cadres and churn out paperwork. Even the National Planning Commission, tucked away quietly under Program 2, has been reduced to a symbolic office, underfunded, underutilized, politically sidelined. The very structure that should be shaping our long-term development is treated as an afterthought. Honorable Chair, we are being asked to approve strategic plans and APPs that are full of dashboards but devoid of delivery. Even when the challenges are flagged, the DPME takes months to respond if it does at all. There is no real-time monitoring, no tracked turnaround times, no teeth. So what exactly are we debating here today? We are debating a department that cannot monitor in real time, cannot evaluate against empirical metrics, and cannot plan beyond PowerPoint. This is not an engine room of the state, it is a fax machine for underperformance. The MK party wants to make it abundantly clear, no national planning department should rely on persuasion to enforce delivery. That is not governance, that is a stakeholder workshop masquerading as government. We do not need another medium-term plan. We need DPME Enabling Act, a law that gives this department real power, real authority, and real teeth. Until then, the DPME will remain what it is now, a glorified secretariat issuing reports no one reads, making recommendations no one implements, and monitoring a performance regime no one respects. As the MK party, we reject this budget. We reject this budget with all the contempt it deserves. Not because we are against planning, but because we are against planning without power or purpose and evaluation without enforcement. Ngena ilumi. We even reject the conflict that the minister speaks about here. How can you say you are planning, monitoring, and evaluation, and you take the responsibility to run a department of SOE? Who's going to monitor you? Who is going to monitor you, Minister? How can you take executive responsibility and yet are a monitoring department? Isn't this obvious? Just asking for conflict. South Africans deserve better. The DPME must either be rebuilt from the ground up or shut down altogether. We do not want Ngena Ilumi, we want Akungenwa. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Christie.
Morning, everyone. Chair, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has a vital role in the GNU's achievement of the 3 priorities of the Medium-Term Development Plan: inclusive economic growth, poverty reduction, and building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. The department has the critical mandate of providing evidence to assist our government to make informed decisions. In doing so, the DPME strengthens accountability in our democracy. Meeting senior managers in Pretoria on our oversight visit, I can confirm that they are committed and driven individuals with success in their blood. The outcome expected of the DPME is ultimately improved governance. Achieving their outcomes involves listening to inputs from stakeholders, including the private sector and civil society, on whether plans are working. The DPME must be in constant communication with South Africans on what is working and what is not. This budget of 552 million rand is worth the expenditure if we see improvement in our administrations across all levels of government, especially in our failing SOEs and local governments. Over the past year, the DPME has evaluated 12 government departments and 48 SOEs. Well done. I've asked the Ministers of Health and Higher Education to report to our committee on how they are implementing the DPME's recommendations, because the key is whether the ministers are actually implementing these recommendations. There must be a strong emphasis on ensuring that planning, monitoring, and evaluation are data-driven. The data needs to be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Hence our speeches last week on the importance of a fully funded Stats SA. The DPME cannot do its job without a functional Statistics SA. One of the DPME's important services is complaints and compliments received through the presidential hotline, costing the department 63 million rands over the medium term. It's important that this office functions well. Our citizens need to be empowered to hold our government accountable directly and not just through us public reps. Chair, when you monitor and evaluate, you do so against a plan measured on outcomes. If we examine our plan, the NDP, it's heavy on words but light on implementation. It envisages improved safety, food security, service delivery, hospitals and clinics, education by 2030. There's some beautiful visionary words such as our homes, neighborhoods, villages, towns and cities are safe and filled with laughter. The faces of our children tell of the future we have crafted. We have 5 years to implement the NDP, Chair, and the reasonable expectation would be that we're making progress. Our people deserve results. Yet if we listen to civil society, if we read the news, if we look Jonga and see Bona and monitor the well-being of the people in our own constituencies, how are they doing 31 years into our democracy? Have their lives improved since 1994? I see the consequences of government failure in my constituency in Khayelitsha, a place. And the City of Cape Town and Province of Western Cape are doing their level best in spite of national failure issues. 7 out of 10 of my constituents are unemployed. They're not safe. Their children go to bed hungry, and the grade 4 children cannot read for meaning. Chair, let's level with ourselves. Who is prospering under the policies implemented over the last 31 years? Are our policies working for most South Africans, or is it only the politically connected few whose lives have improved? Are we anywhere near fulfilling the NDP 2030? Is the conduct, Chair, of our ministers, including the Minister of Police, clean and above board and in the best interests of our people? Or are there some ministers who should be shown the door, even sent to jail? Our country needs an economy that delivers jobs and narrows our heartbreaking inequality. Only through a growing economy can we achieve redress and build our communities. We need to go back to the drawing board and re-look at the policies that have undoubtedly failed, throttling our SMEs with restrictive legislation, leading to an unemployment rate of 32.9%, the highest in the world. A third of our working age population cannot find work to put food on the table for their children. Is it looking like most Black South Africans have not been empowered since 1994? Having a job is where you get empowered, right? I'm wondering whether our DPME staff are a bit disillusioned with tracking our society and seeing very little progress. Insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. Let's implement new policies that move us closer to the NDP targets, policies that will create jobs and bring real empowerment. Please, Mamelani to the DA, we've got some plans to empower Black South Africans. Then, with new policies, our homes will be filled with laughter and the faces of our children will tell of the future we have crafted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Matiwani.
Sibulise kumongameli wombutho wesizwe, Economic Freedom Fighters, isikhokhelo ngokubanzi kumalungu nabemi belilizwe loMzansi Afrika jikelele. Singakulibelanga ke nawe sihlalo nendlu ngokubanzi. Siqale ngokumema wonke ummi welilizwe kumbhiyozo yokube ubanjelwe ekhaya elitsha Rugby Stadium apha eNtshona Koloni. Ngomhla wama-26 kule nyanga yekhala. Apho umbutho Economic Freedom Fighters uyokube egqiba iminyaka eli-12 usilwela impula zikaLjaca kweli lizwe lokhokho bethu. Ndicinga sihlalo kubalulekile ukuba sazise lendlu ukuba mhla ikomiti idibene izokuhlalutya iphicothe olulwabiwo-mali lwelusebe le-Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Umphathiswa kunye nesekela lakhe khange bazidine ngoba khona kuloo ntlanganiso. Loo nto ke kuthi ibonisa ukuba lo msebenzi umkhulu ujongene neli sebe abawuthatheli ntweni. The department has the responsibility of ensuring that strategic plans, budgets and performance plans across all government departments, provincial governments, local government and state enterprises are aligned. However, this work must start with the department itself. If the department's house is not in order, it cannot be expected to play an effective government-wide planning, monitoring and evaluation role. Since the department is tasked with facilitating the implementation of the National Development Plan and its recently adopted implementation plan, which is the Medium-Term Development Plan, the MTDP, the biggest challenge facing the department in fulfilling its mandate lies in the fact that currently there exists no legislative framework to give a clear statutory mandate of accountability by the department, which the DPME is supposed to give planning, monitoring and evaluation oversight over other departments. This gap in legislation has hindered the realization of Vision 2030, which has been a monumental disaster. This has been further exacerbated by the uncertainty in policy within the so-called Government of National Unity, as the Democratic Alliance ministers are determined to reverse the gains of the democratic project, which sought to correct the historical injustices. Our assessment is that this department exists merely for existing. The fact that over 70% of its budget is spent on paying salaries and consultants. When this committee conducted an unannounced oversight visit to the presidential hotline based at the Union buildings, we were met with an empty office that resembled an abandoned building with broken telephones and broken computers, with no indication that any work takes place there, while the line manager maintains that the office has 18 workers on the payroll. Perhaps the starting point would be to conduct job evaluations to check if the salary bill is justifiable, as some employees might just be collecting salaries while just sitting at home. House Chair, this department is doomed for failure if Statistics South Africa continues to be defunded, as it is crucial in the realization of an evidence-based planning, implementation, and monitoring of government priorities. The results of this failure are not abstract, as they are demonstrated by the high number of service delivery protests in many communities across South Africa, as departmental budgets are being exhausted without any tangible results on the ground. With every cycle of oversight visits by committees of this House is made aware of the horror stories of abandoned or poorly planned projects, which cost the fiscus billions of rands year in and year out. This budget does not address the structural and systematic challenges that beset this department and government as a whole. The core functions of the department are national planning, coordination, sector monitoring services, public sector monitoring and capacity development, and evidence and knowledge systems. Over the short term, there's been a decrease in funding of an average of 3.5% across all 5 programs of the department. This has an impact on the ability of the government to effectively conduct planning, monitoring, and evaluation of government departments. To avoid another 20 wasted years in policy limbo, as the last 5 years of the NDP do not give any hope or signs of a turnaround, it is imperative that the National Planning Commission is adequately funded. It was Oscar Wilde in his essay titled The Soul of Man Under Socialism who once said that, and I open quote, "They tried to solve the problem of poverty, for instance, by keeping the poor alive, or in the case of a very advanced school, by amusing the poor," close quote. Gimmicks in the form of the 700 million national dialogue will not solve the social ills of unemployment, poverty, and racial inequality. An investment in strong planning, monitoring, and evaluation systems will go a long way in curbing irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. House Chair, the EFF vehemently rejects this proposed budget, and we equally reject those who reject the fact that we reject this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Hatebe.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The current national budget is severely constrained by budget cuts, which are directly impacting service delivery and the realization of strategic priorities. The department's key role in leading and coordinating government's plans, monitoring priorities, and evaluating programs as outlined in the National Development Plan remains of utmost importance. The IFP has consistently maintained that South Africa is not short of plans, which, if properly implemented, could advance our developmental agenda. However, the process falters at the crucial monitoring and evaluation stage. However, we acknowledge the importance of the department and the IFP welcomes the budget increase. Furthermore, we welcome the National Planning Commission's commitment to producing and completing 1 research report per year to support the implementation of the NDP. Once again, the National Steering Committee on Integrated Planning is a commendable initiative that provides a platform for engagement, consultation, and communication amongst the department, other central government departments, and Premier's offices regarding planning and its supporting instruments. Its purpose is to provide strategic leadership and enhance coordination across the 3 spheres of government to achieve better development outcomes. However, there is a lack of consequence management for failures to improve these outcomes, and no comprehensive monitoring and evaluation to identify the barriers to development across all spheres. The IFP notes and welcomes the department's commitment to monitor the performance of individual national and provincial government departments and municipalities, and to facilitate targeted interventions such as research, rapid assessment, and site visits to validate and verify data and reported outcomes. This is a vital step. However, the most important measure of this commitment is the action taken by the department once the data becomes available. We also welcome the department's commitment to monitoring frontline services to identify areas for improvement, with plans to produce 2 reports per year over the medium term on service delivery. As an overarching department, DMPE should thoroughly engage with every aspect of service delivery. The department's program on sector monitoring services responsible for overseeing intervention strategies aimed at achieving results outlined in the medium-term development plan has received an increased budget allocation. This should enable effective tracking of government's performance in delivering on the 3 priorities of the MTDP: failure to identify and resolve problems, accelerate key interventions, and prioritize the needs of women, youth, and people with disabilities would amount to a misuse of the allocated budget. The IFP echoes the Portfolio Committee's concern over the lack of clarity in the DPME's processes for assessing the viability and feasibility of action plans submitted by other national departments. The department remains critical to our national agenda, and with the increased budget allocation, we hope it will coordinate effectively to achieve improved results with clear consequences for any failure to do so. The IFP supports these budget votes. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'm not sure if there's a member from Patriotic Alliance. No one. Then we move to recognizing Honorable Vessels.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. House Chair, the truth is that South Africa and the South African government has never lacked plans. There's always been an abundance of plans. The National Development Plan is an example thereof. Annual performance plans of each department is an example thereof. But what we should be honest about is that the implementation in many instances lack, and that those plans remain good intentions, but not actually future-proof and in touch with what actually happens out there. And it also does not relate to what the actual impact of those strategies are. Because at the end of the day, Chairperson, we have to evaluate what government does in terms of what the impact out there is. And currently, the impact is not very good. The National Development Plan had the best and has the best intentions of addressing, and it identified the problems in terms of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. But those intentions remained intentions, as the impact are not felt by the people out there. And we didn't address and evaluate the plans in terms of what the realities and the developments on and in the global economy, the macro circumstances really are. Plans need to be adjusted. And if we don't have correct evaluation, those plans remain good intentions without bearing any fruit to change the livelihoods of the people out there. But, Honourable Chairperson, if we go and look at the reality of, for instance, just the annual performance plans of departments, we really do have a problem, where targets are just set just for the sake of sitting or setting a target, and without really looking once again at the impact of what will happen if the target is achieved or what will happen if the target is not achieved. Targets, for instance, are set in terms of how many complaints a department receives. That's not something the department has any control over, but that's a target that's set for the department. Handling complaints is something else, but that's not what happens. We have malicious compliance and a lot of nonsensical targets. And then us as a legislature and the Department of DPME goes through that and think we are actually ticking boxes and doing what we are supposed to do. But we will have to, Minister, through you, Chairperson, go and look at what the targets and the achievement and underachievement of targets really translate to in the communities out there. It's one thing to, for instance, say that we achieve targets in terms of providing piped water to communities. But then, what about the scarcity of water, the quality of water? And that's once again that evaluation and that difference between just setting a target but not looking at the impact. The people of South Africa are still suffering. We have an abundance of unemployment and poverty. We have a lack of basic service delivery. This department should do and fulfill its mandate. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now recognize Honorable Letlape.
Thank you, Chair. I recognize the Minister, the Director General, and the officials. You know, if people could eat plans and policies, there would be no food insecurity in our country. When you have no reason to exist, you exist to find reasons to exist. And clearly, we need a head of state that plans better. We're creating ministry after ministry, and there's not enough money to fund all of them. And all of them complain about insufficient funds. And all of them create bureaucracies that cost us. We have the biggest government in the developing world. Even when we create a multi-party democracy government, it results in a bigger cabinet, a bigger executive, more costs, and money doesn't filter to the bottom. You have a department that has no authority, but does a lot of work. And unless the president cedes some of the powers to the ministries that it creates, we're just wasting money. Everybody, when there's a problem, you got to create an interministerial committee to try and sort out the problem. If there's proper planning, evaluation, coordination, those structures should be in place. They should not be reactive to challenges in society. I stand here as a victim of femicide. I'm an additional member in that committee of women, youth, and people with disability. They are underfunded. They can't get departments to account on targets that have been set for employment of people with disabilities, for gender equality. And yet we create more and more structures. They on their own have to talk about interministerial committee, coordination across the sectors that are involved in dealing with gender-based violence and femicide. At the same time, you have another department somewhere that's supposed to do the coordination. How do we hope to succeed as a nation when, as public office bearers, all we can do is spend money on ourselves and increase the bureaucracy in the country, when the needs of society are not met? Every budget you go to, everybody complains of insufficiency. We have too much government. We have too many ministries. Consolidate, be strategic, And when you create a ministry, give it the resources and give it the powers. Because when other ministers can't account, you have no authority to deal with them. We talk about building an ethical and capable state. Where's the rule book about what to do with a member of parliament that lies to parliament? With a member of the executive that lies to us? What we see is protection and possible promotion. Is that an ethical state? We, in a clear conscience, as ActionSA, cannot support this budget. Not because planning and monitoring is not needed, but there's
Honorable
plenty
Letape,
of
your
paper
time is
everywhere.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now recognize Honorable Kana.
Nakens, I'm Tramastul. Honorable members, fellow South Africans. This is one of the few departments that if you ask any South Africans, they will agree that we need it. We need strong planning, we need tight monitoring, and we desperately need accountability in how government performs. When this department was first announced, there was real excitement. Finally, there was a department that was going to track delivery, to make government work better. But since then, it has gone quiet. It has been missing in action. And in all honesty, it is being treated as a desk. And unfortunately, it also behaves like one. Plans are there, plenty of them. But where is the implementation? Where is the follow-up? What South Africans want is not another report, another PowerPoint. They want this department to be an activist department, one that demands more from every government department, one that is seen and felt in every corner of this country. We acknowledge that this department has been allocated a budget of just over 500 million rands. And as Rise Mzansi, we want to see this money used for this department. And for yourself, Minister, we want this department to be proactive in identifying and addressing inefficiencies across government, to give South Africans regular updates, not just every 6 months, in terms of how departments are performing. We want to see this budget being used to ensure that the National Planning Commission is reactivated to plan our development for the next 20 years, learning from the work that has worked and what hasn't worked in the NDP 2030. We want to see this department driving performance in national and provincial governments. In national and provincial governments, there should be no department collapsing under poor leadership when this department exists. Chairperson, this department must stop looking inward. It must step into the public square, tell the country what is going on, and hold others to account. If we are to build a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa, this department must lead from the front, with agency, with courage, and with results. Nakens Mtramashtul.
Thank you, Honorable Ghana. We now invite the Deputy Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, Mayor Shelley. Let me stand on the protocol established by the Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Ms. Marupini Ramogopa. Good morning. Good morning, how? What's your problem? The 30th of June, the 30th of June, 2025 signals the end of a period rightly designated as the Youth Month in our national calendar. As we draw the curtain on the Youth Month and entering another milestone, the Mandela Month, grant me permission, House Chair, to salute the June 16 detachment of 1976 and the death thrust in our struggle for liberation. It is their supreme sacrifices that guaranteed us access into these erstwhile colonial buildings and seats in the former apartheid fortress. It is on the back of this sacrifice that today we stand before you to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to building a capable, ethical, and developmental state that serves the needs of all South Africans. The Department of Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation is a weapon in the hands of the people to ensure government remains accountable, accessible, responsive, and effective in delivering on its promises and commitments. Our integrated monitoring systems are a cornerstone of these efforts, in line with our mantra of Batopele. The Frontline Monitoring and Support Program, in particular, bridges the gap between government and the people, enabling us to understand the challenges faced by the citizens in accessing essential services. Sector monitoring provides a bird's-eye view of institutional performance and progress on the implementation of government priorities as espoused by a national development plan. Whether it is in monitoring the education sector through early childhood development centers, functioning of safe schools in special schools, or assessing the state of readiness of clinics and hospitals for implementation of national health insurance. Frontline monitoring and support provides us with critical insights to improving service delivery. We do so driven by the collective sense of agency, an agency to end inequality, poverty, and unemployment. We are mobilizing society and government to launch a frontal assault on gender-based violence and femicide through monitoring hotspot, police stations, and Tutuzela care centers to ensure justice and support for victims. Furthermore, we are keeping a close eye on disaster relief measures, ensuring that citizens affected by climate-related incidents receive assistance they need. Our team, in collaboration with key government departments and agencies, will soon visit Umtata in the Eastern Cape, where over 100 of our people perished due to a natural disaster. Our visit cannot be a symbolic gesture in the face of such human tragedy. It should unblock blockages in the post-disaster government and civil society interventions and ensure that affected communities receive the necessary support deserving of a people in despair. Our efforts extend to the economy, national security, and social welfare, from monitoring industrial parks and special economic zones to assessing the performance of South African Social Security Agency and substance abuse treatment facilities. We are working tirelessly to address challenges that impact our citizens' lives. As part of optimizing the payment of the grants, the DPME is conducting a rapid evaluation of a master service level agreement entered between SASSA and Post Office as ceded to Post Bank. Key to the objectives of the rapid evaluation is to assess the effectiveness of the MSA and the associated level agreements between parties in the payment of social grants against the initial objective, given that it has been effective since 2008 and the emerging persistent challenges. In the past financial year, we visited, amongst others, several health facilities, schools and post-school education and training facility, farmer support production units, degraded land set aside for rehabilitation, the Cookhouse Wind Farm Trust. We challenge land reform farms such as Zebediela, labor centers, special economic zones, and independent power producers, and we continue our work with various stakeholders to address these perennial challenges. Chairperson, our department assisted the Atlantic Special Economic Zone to secure 3D entity status and tax incentive approvals, which made it easier to attract foreign direct investment. Since then, the SEZ has made significant progress in developing Zone 1 with 850 million investment by 7 operational investors, as a result of which 351 jobs were created. The Special Economic Zones has also exceeded its small, medium, middle enterprises participation targets, awarding over 25 million in contracts accounting for 42% of civil works to local enterprises. This assisted in generating many needed jobs and in completing key infrastructure projects, including fencing, roads, and utilities. The project visited a catalytic and required cluster approach for optimizing performance and impact. For example, the DPME undertook a monitoring visit to Nkwa Industrial Park in Limpopo, identified numerous challenges such as water shortages, unstable electricity supply, high utility cost, labor compliance issues, and poor infrastructure. The department led process of developing a multi-stakeholder improvement plan. As a result, the industrial park has undergone key improvements to enhance operations and support local businesses. Companies like Pepperdew invested in private water sources, ESCOM built a dedicated mini substation, and the Department of Science and Technology, Department of Trade and Industry and Competition committed around 50 million to upgrade the water pipelines, boosting capacity for business growth. Although there are still some challenges, coordinated efforts and infrastructure investment have laid a strong foundation for long-term industrial and economic development. Monitoring of labor centers across provinces under Department of Labor has indeed confirmed strategic location of these centers, facilitate access and reach for services, and the public employment services and labor activations programs are critical and do facilitate opportunities to work seekers and placement. The department assessment and intervention of the Isithebe Industrial Park catalyzed some of the key socio-economic developments. Major upgrades included removing asbestos, paving roads, and revitalizing facilities. A key milestone was the establishment of the digital hub, which will soon commence operation. This was achieved through the support of the Moses Kotane Institute and the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Economic Development. Our team will continue to work with all stakeholders to pave the way for enhanced innovation, infrastructure, and business support within the park. The presidential hotline remains an indispensable tool for understanding the lived experiences of our people. It is a direct line between government and citizens, enabling us to respond swiftly to your concerns and improve service delivery. We are advocating for active citizenry to ensure that the promises made are promises delivered. To advance a culture of quality and excellence in the public administration, we coordinate critical platforms such as South African Association of Public Administration and Management Annual Conference and South African Monitoring and Evaluation Association biannual conferences, fostering collaboration and innovation in monitoring and evaluation. These initiatives, in partnership with institutions like National School of Government and Public Service Commission, are vital to strengthen the capacity of our public service. We are intentional in collaboration with National Anti-Corruption Strategy, working alongside the Presidency and the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council to combat corruption and promote transparency. Initiatives like Anti-Corruption National Dialogue demonstrate our commitment to ethical governance. To conclude, we are investing in the future of public service through partnership with higher education institutions such as University of Pretoria, amongst others, to bridge the gap between academia and public sector by promoting interdisciplinary approaches to evaluation and research. We are equipping our public servants with the skills and knowledge needed to drive meaningful change. The investment to public service is critical and necessary. We will not waver in our commitment to the principles outlined in the National Development Plan and MTDP. Together, let us continue to work towards a South Africa that is capable, ethical, and developmental. A South Africa that serves its people with integrity and excellence. We are building on the experience gained from the consensus achieved within a short space of time to agree on MTDP, to galvanize society towards envision national dialogue, as the Minister highlighted. Our people must relive the spirit of I'm a volunteer before the Congress of the People in Kliptown. South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
We now invite the Honorable Bergman
Thanks, Chair. I think it's very ominous.
Order, honorable members.
Chair, I think it's very ominous when most of the parties, all the parties except for one, are on the same side. The Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has an important mandate of overseeing the implementation of government policies across all departments and reporting entities. Despite the mandate, the department does not effectively use its teeth in ensuring that government plans are implemented on time, without malfeasance, with any issues reported and dealt with timeously. After laying the groundwork in establishing national plans, doing so without robust implementation and accountability is a job half done. A year has already passed in this Parliament, and the department must ensure going forward that it is more than an entity watching from a distance, but also doing the hard yards in seeing through the important work for South Africans. Considering the Debate and Portfolio Committee have to oversee the National Development Plan, Medium-Term Development Plan and National Planning Commission, the committee and department meet irregularly. Despite their packed agenda, over the past year, this has been a huge missed opportunity, and we call on the department and committee chairperson, ministers and deputy minister to ensure frequent meetings going forward. With over 8 million South Africans unemployed and an economy not growing enough, the work of the department and committee are imperative. We are not doing enough. The DA refuses that planning, monitoring and evaluation be relegated to a tick box institution where there's no robust debate on ideas, and failing government departments are let off scot-free. Once plans are finalised by Cabinet, workable turnaround times must be put in place with genuine consequences for work not done. For every plan left unscrutinised, the jobless queue remains long and sustainable economic growth out of reach. In addition to sitting on its hands, the department is also seriously misguided in various aspects. Case in point, the National States Enterprises Bill, which the department remains adamant, despite growing opposition, even by the trade unions. Centralising state-owned enterprises will never work in growing the economy and delivering jobs. In fact, centralisation leads to economic regression, which has been our country's sad reality for over a decade. We cannot afford to double down on bad ideas. The Zondo Commission expressed emphatically that whole-scale looting at our state-owned enterprises occurred due to a lack of oversight, made possible by centralising state-owned enterprises under the former Department of Public Enterprises. The National State Enterprises Bill seeks to follow the same modus operandi, and in the interest of our country, we once again call on the department to do what is right and not ideological in scrapping this bill immediately. Jobless and poor South Africans in particular cannot afford a return to state capture. The President has rightfully placed the state-owned entities under respective ministries and given the important oversight function of oversight to the respective committees. This should be allowed to run its course and monitored for public-private partnerships, privatisation, and the sale of underperforming or non-performing state-owned entities. While we are meant to be overseeing the reform of these entities, the department rather has us focused on a costly legislative exercise. Next, the department remains adamant on keeping brand South Africa, which does not at all provide value for money to taxpayers. While the department previously agreed it has filibustered the merger between Brand SA and South African Tourism, the entities perform similar functions, wasting taxpayers' funds. The merger is not a DA plan, but that of government from the previous administration. Failure to make progress in this regard this financial year will see the department at odds with government plans. The DA will ensure that the merger is fast-tracked, and the minister's failure to do so will lead to accountability. Our budget has also had to cater for the amalgamation of two departments in the merger of DPME and DPE. With an extended mandate and less resources available, the department cannot afford any distractions. As national government has made inclusive economic growth and job creation its foremost priority, our core focus must be on reviewing and monitoring plans to achieve this purpose. If a government plan works in creating jobs, we must further implement it. If a government plan does not grow the economy, we must can it. Unfortunately, the department and committee are not utilizing terms of references effectively. We should be summoning ministers and entities that are underperforming and far from reaching the objectives of the MTDP and the NDP. Through the National Planning Commission, we must also ensure plans are streamlined to be effective and oversee through a national dashboard. There's a lot more that can be done in this portfolio. And as willing partners of the Government of National Unity, the mandate given to us by South Africans is not lost on us. Unfortunately, due to the lack of regular programming and the haphazard attendance of members, we are merely treading water. We have had 1 week of oversight in a whole year, which is unacceptable. We had to fight for a physical venue meeting, and even our MTDP presentation was a summarized PowerPoint presentation. Some staff in the department are still acting or performing in roles that were not hired for. This is meant to reflect the Office of the Presidency. This should be one of the most important departments, one that pushes for more productivity and more delivery. We must urgently do more to create an economy flourishing with opportunities, communities that are safe and prosperous, with world standard health and education systems. It can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. We invite the Honourable Chauke.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, honourable members, stakeholders, and most importantly, South Africans. As the African National Congress, we start off by saying we support this budget vote for this department. Having an understanding of its critical role in ensuring the planning, monitoring, and evaluation through all states of all organs of the state. As part of the responsibility of this particular department, maybe many might misunderstand it, is really to ensure that there is consequence, accountability, and measuring of the implementation of all policies, legislations, and plans of government. Additionally, it is to ensure that we engage in ensuring international and continental investment that seeks to improve the lives of the most vulnerable in our country. Now, what is needed from us, honourable members, is to ensure that this department is capacitated with the necessary legislations, with the necessary support, resources, and budget allocation in order for it to meet its constitutional mandate. What is important for us to realize is that this department plays a role of oversighting all three spheres of government. And this is reflected in the proposal for us to have the district development model fully fledged, implemented, monitored, and evaluated to see its effectiveness, but also how it is improving the lives of the most vulnerable. Persons with disabilities, women, youth, LGBTQA+, those in remote rural communities, and those who are previously disadvantaged. The reality that we must face is that what we inherited was positioned and designed to ensure that the majority of those who reside in this country, being the African, our Black people, do not find expression, identity, and economic and social opportunity. Now we say to this department, and we agree with yourselves to say more must be done. This department is not saying that more or less must be done. It is saying more must be done. The Portfolio Committee for PME says more must be done. And our responsibility within this Portfolio Committee is to ensure that this department is meeting its constitutional mandate, is to ensure that we have oversight through all state-owned institutions, government, and the private sector. Now, additionally, we celebrate 70 70 years. Now, yes, of the Freedom Charter. 70 years. Now, in this 70 years, we need to reflect back and say, what have we achieved? What have we achieved and what have we lagged behind on? And when we say what we have lagged on, we start to plan to ensure that we develop interventions that are tangible, that are realistic, and we're able to measure them. We have Statistics SA that provides the necessary guidance in order for us to see the lived realities of those who are on the ground and interventions that can be provided to improve their lives. Now, unemployment, we say, is caused by government, but we do not point to the private sector's role. And what we must realize is that there must be collaborative effort between government and the private sector. There needs to be high levels of accountability, high levels of monitoring and evaluating. Now, those who are sitting in Nkandla cohort had a president who led but yet could not enforce, and now they have migrated from your red overalls and are sitting in the Nkandla cohort and they think they can now do better. Those who are sitting in Nkandla are the same people who had oversight over state-owned institutions and led them to failure through their looting and selfish and individual interests. But it's okay, we stand together. We're united for South Africans. Our comrades or commanders in the red overalls, we fight for those who are previously disadvantaged, for our workers, our gardeners, our children, and our learners who are taken out of the educational system. We must improve the health system. We must have oversight through education. We must ensure that there is a creation of employment, economic opportunities. We must ensure that women, youth, and persons with disabilities are just not beneficiaries, but are contributors towards the growth and development of this country. But that means, Minister, Deputy Ministers, we must pull up our socks. We must do better. And the African National Congress is not blind to the reality. It is saying we are going to do better, we've been doing better, but we also appreciate that 31 years later, there has been tangible and measurable improvement in the lives of the most vulnerable. Now, we put it very clearly, those who've never had power think they can do better, but they can't, because we know what they live on is calling vote of no confidence when they have power. Now, power is about understanding the people. Power is not about grandstanding. Power is about sitting down and seeing how you can improve the lives of South African citizens. Power is about negotiating. Power is about tangible results. I am not my sister. I am Honorable Chauke Adonis. I respect my honorable fellow members. Now, South African citizens are watching, and reality is that we need our municipalities to play their role in ensuring the execution of the plans that have been put forward. All pillars of government must be proactive. This department must ensure that not only at national, provincial, in our municipalities and locally, we are well coordinated. There must be coordination, there must be consequence management, and there must be accountability. Now, like I said, our municipal,
members.
Imagine being bullied by an elder. Who was our teen?
Continue.
But nonetheless, thank you very much, Chairperson. Now, when we come and we say this department's budget, yes, is not sufficient, it means it must do what it can with the budget allocation. Now, we say that we must see tangible results. There must be interdepartment collaboration in order for you to realize your constitutional mandate. There must be consequence management. There must be a framework that ensures that we're able to have oversight through all government institutions, department, and the private sector that formulates a very well coordinated matrix of accountability in order for us to see tangible results and not wait for SOEs to collapse before we act. We know that those who are sitting on this side grandstanding are the contributors to some of those SOEs collapsing. But we will ensure that state-owned institutions shall be revived and they shall be contributors towards the economy and create employment opportunities. As part of that, we will be oversighting bills and legislation that can ensure that SOEs will not be dependent on rescue, but must be self-sufficient. We must ensure that South African citizens have housing, meaning the Department of Human Settlement, there must be oversight, and we must assist them in their planning, in their monitoring, and evaluation of their plans, their 5-year targets, and annual reports. We must sit and evaluate whether they've been efficient. When it comes to healthcare services, we must ensure that we are able to measure if there has been a decline or an increase in terms of improving the quality of service to South African citizens. We must have an evaluation that tells us whether persons with disabilities are being distanced further.
Honorable members, although the rules do allow you, but please do not drown the speaker. You must allow her to debate. Do not drown the speaker. Honorable members, no. Honorable members, you are honorable. Do not howl and do not drown the speaker. Do it in a manner that does not drown the speaker on the podium. Honorable Chauke, continue.
Thank you very much. We can say 42% unemployment, and that is the reality that we're lived with. And hence why I articulated to say both government and the private sector must play its critical role. Government's responsibility is to ensure that the private sector is compliant. And those who seek to remove us in terms of redressing or digressing from the Equity Act, we must ensure, Minister and Deputy Minister, that the Equity Act must be enforced throughout all facets of society and all sectors, government, private sector, and I think it's also equally important that political parties should also have this reflected in their constitution. Those who are saying that they are incoming in government, we understand that it's a whole lot of, comrades, commanders who have taken from the state, who think once they're in power, they can eat the food of this country. Now, honorable members, I thank you as we support this budget vote and really understand that when we sit in our portfolio committee, let us constructively contribute towards the work that is being done by this department. Let us ensure, Chairperson of the portfolio committee, that we are calling all departments and state-owned institutions to come and account. Additionally, the private sector must tell us what is their 5-year medium-term development plan in contributing towards the economy, the development, and the growth of this country. Now, what we understand is that it's fine. We're young people. We don't need elders to tell us we're ready to lead. We are leading now.
Honorable Chauke, your time is
Thank you
expired.
very much, honorable members. Amanda!
Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. The House is still in session. Honorable members, we will now invite the Minister in the Presidency, Minister Ramkhupa, to respond and close the debate.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Thank you very much to all the contributions, most especially the contributions that from Honorable Chauke. Everyone else, we accept the contributions that have been made, and we accept them precisely because they are going to assist us to improve, which is what we need. I was just informing Honorable Manye that I honestly have enjoyed working with the other members, I wouldn't say who, precisely because they want to build. Whatever it is that they are bringing is always aimed at ensuring that whatever it is that we do improves the work of government. We are going to be working, of course, with Presidency to strengthen coordination across government through the cluster system. Several members of Parliament have in the past rightly pointed out that coordination remains a challenge across the different spheres of government. In response, I have instructed the department to intensify efforts to align provincial government development strategies with our MTDP. We have begun this work already with the Northern Cape, a province endowed with resources for renewable energy and green hydrogen potential. Realizing such opportunities requires strong intergovernmental coordination, especially given the limited financial resources that we are living under. The development of the MTDP, honorable members, involved collaboration with the Department of Cooperative Governance and South African Local Government Association. We are now working with the DCOG to ensure that the district development model champions have clear delivery scorecards linked with the MTDP. DPME will use existing platforms, including DDMs, to engage municipalities and ensure that alignment with their own planning processes is actually successful. Our approach, of course, is to monitor the work of intervening departments at the national and provincial levels to prevent duplication. The aim is to create space for integrated planning systems that will optimize the available limited resources, especially under the prevailing fiscal constraints. You have already heard what the Deputy Minister have actually outlined, and that shows the delivery model that is in place to ensure that our government does what it needs to do. But equally so, as the current NDP nears its end, Honorable Manye, preparations for the national dialogue aligns well with the work of the National Planning Commission to review the NDP and to chart a new long-term plan for our country. A long-term planning fosters policy certainty and informed decision-making, particularly on major public investment. In July 2025, honorable members, DPME presented a detailed performance review of government to cabinet, highlighting high impact areas that requires attention. Following engagement with cabinet, this performance report will be shared with Parliament through Portfolio Committee, Honorable Chairperson. In order to assess the impact of government programs, a forward-looking evidence plan was developed to set priorities for research, for evaluation, and data systems over the next 5 years. In evidence plan, we will be able to implement and introduce new focus areas in line with the MTDP of 2024 to 2029. I'm sure this will then now assist us to be able to deal with most of the issues that honorable members have been able to raise here. Greater emphasis, of course, for this financial year will be placed on timely dissemination of evidence products. This means presenting findings in accessible and actionable formats, tracking the uptake and impact of recommendations, and supporting departments in developing and executing improvement plans that deliver real change. And you will be able to see that maybe we should communicate more some of these things that we're already putting in place. Wider dissemination will be supported through targeted roundtables and dialogue session involving the minister and brief relevant parliamentary. We will also be able to brief parliamentary committees and stakeholders so that we can deepen accountability and also promote learning. Key priorities of this financial year in development of modern digital and integrated reporting system to improve reporting of government performance will also be implemented. We will also focus on applying integrated reporting dashboard, strengthening capacity for data science, evidence synthesis, and impact evaluation, all to ensure that our work remains cutting edge and relevant, as the honorable members have been able to raise with us. Furthermore, DPME, in collaboration with Portfolio Committee, hosted an M&E capacity building workshop for parliamentarians, and I think some parliamentarians parliamentarians attended, but I'm sure some didn't. It is for this reason that they still don't know exactly what we are doing and how we are doing it. We will therefore encourage members to actually avail themselves so that as we workshop members in terms of what we are doing, they can then now be able to monitor us and also play an oversight based on evidence, but also based on what is actually reality, not only on what they believe needs to happen. And lastly, I must mention that it becomes disingenuous to want to compare the government before democracy and in apartheid, of course, with what is democratically happening currently, precisely because in apartheid time, there was just a few select people that were being serviced by government, whereas now everybody's being serviced by government. As a result, things will be different. As a result, that will then now mean that to compare the two just becomes disingenuous, and it's actually unnecessary and unfortunate at the end. So let me take this opportunity, of course, to thank all of you and believe that, honorable members, you will continue to support us, but also direct us as we continue to use globally tested modalities, including the OECD. And I must mention this to the honorable member from DA, because whatever it is that we bring in place on the centralized model is based on global performance and also global structures that are there from the OECD, which you can agree, if maybe you may, that they have worked. It is not just something that we are thumb-sucking, but it is tested, and we want to bring the best models that are tested globally to be able to ensure that as we speak to service delivery and economic development, to make sure that we are able to produce employment, we should then now be able to have those catalytic institutions that would allow us to do that. What we can speak about is how do we do that? How do we ensure that implementation takes place? But at the end of the day, more than anything else, how do we coordinate better so that the plans that are there from the NDP to the MTDP will speak to what we need to do? Because the NDP is about the vision of a long term, but the MTDP is medium term. That is supposed to give us guidance and implement the NDP. And APPs are supposed to annually assure that whatever it is that is in the MTDP is actually planned, but it allows us to deal with the targets and indicators that can be measurable at the end of the day. Having said that, we welcome the inputs that you have given us, and we're definitely going to use them to improve the department, because this department is not a department for us, but it's supposed to service society as we ensure that Musho wa Batu, Musho wa GNU led by the ANC becomes a government that delivers for the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable members. An order. Honorable members are reminded that two debates are scheduled simultaneously for 2 o'clock, the Home Affairs budget vote in Good Hope Chamber and tourism budget vote M46. That concludes the debate and the business for this mini plenary. The mini plenary may rise.